started it.
Welcome back to the White Napkins and Salted Pistachios podcast.
Wow.
I am Brandon, and I am here with Caleb today
Hola.
to talk about the movie Goodfellas back in 1990.
Before we do that, though, before we do that,
Mm-hmm.
pistachios? You're a
I have
pistachio guy,
nothing.
aren't you?
When I went to Kuwait, I didn't want to eat anything that was too heavy when I was over there because I was trying to lose weight.
Mm.
So I saw pistachios and I heard people talking about them, and I was like, I mean, I'll try them. I was like, I don't think I'll like these, but like I'll try it because I don't like most nuts. Like I don't like cashews or stuff like that.
Oh,
So I was like,
wow.
maybe. And then I tried it and I was like, yo, these things are gas. I was like, they're not bad. And they're not big. They're not over heavy. So yeah, I like pistachios now.
I'm gonna hit you to the counterpoint. A, because you
Mhm.
just insulted cashews, which was not necessary.
Oh,
It's funny, I ate cashews last night, as a matter of fact. It was the last thing
did
I ate
you?
before I went to bed, yeah. Now,
That's funny.
what I will say, now I'm not a big pistachio guy, but I want to give some credit to nuts. Yeah,
Oh,
you,
yo.
you, you heard you heard me right. No pauses, you heard me right. But real quick though, because here's the thing, nuts are deceptive, right? You think when you're eating them, it doesn't feel like you're eating a lot.
Right,
But what
exactly.
you'd
But
be
if you,
very surprised to find out is you're actually getting quite a bit of calories in. Not only that, but
see,
also a good amount of protein as well.
yeah,
So they're
yeah.
very, very efficient.
I think nuts and beans are like the two that are like very under what is it called? Like perceived within society. Like, oh no, I need to eat meat like chicken or
Right,
beef. But
right.
like if you
It's
can
a
eat beans
balance,
and
right? Well, you
yeah.
need a balance. You got to get all the ingredients in your system. You can't just be a
I
meat
mean,
eater.
I'm a meat guy though, so
I'm a
like
meat guy too, but with all meat you need a side, and the side
yeah.
can't be meat. That's
Well,
not
you
you
can't
can't do
eat
that.
so your side's more protein.
Yeah, exactly. Like you gotta even it. You gotta get some rice in there, maybe some vegetables if you're
There you
feeling
go.
healthy. Now,
Yeah.
yeah. See, here's the thing, right? Now I'm on an appetite stimulant now, as I told you earlier, so
Mhm.
it's not really a problem for me anymore. But when I wasn't and I was trying to gain weight, that was kind of my cheat code because I wouldn't be obviously I'd have to eat when I wasn't hungry. And because when I would eat cashews or, sometimes it would be like salted almonds or all different kinds of flavors of shit too. Like that's the other crazy part. The expansive flavors that these nuts have are top tier. So habanero barbecue one, phenomenal. Anyway, how I cheated the system was I just ate nuts all the time when I wasn't hungry and I drank a shit ton of milk. Like an asinine amount of milk on a daily
Oh yeah,
basis. Now
you
I
and
still
you and
kind of do
milk.
that.
You and milk,
Yeah, we yeah,
bro.
we
Oh,
yeah, we got into this the other day.
you and
I'll
milk.
repeat I'll reiterate what I said then so I can stand on it.
Yeah, go ahead.
But if I could drink one thing for the rest of my life and water wasn't essential to living, like let's say this drink can be water to you
Yeah,
and replenish your
yeah.
system, I'm taking milk. 10 times out of 10, I'm taking milk.
Oh, there's
Now,
no shot.
the
You're
only
taking milk.
issue, the only issue with that is that milk doesn't necessarily go with everything, but I think the lines are a little bit broader than people give it credit for because
Yeah,
see, you and your mom gave me shit for
bro.
drinking milk with my quesadilla. That's okay. It's
No,
cheese,
it's
dude.
not.
It's cheese and fucking chicken, Brandon. What's the
Yeah,
issue?
and so what?
What's the
Yeah,
conflict?
you don't.
Have you
You
ever?
don't.
Hold on. What is
Uh,
it? Tell me what it is.
that's so. What's
Because
wrong?
you
It's the
made
same with.
you made no.
It's
It's not
the
the
same.
same as pizza. It is not
It
the same. No,
is.
it is
It's. What
not.
do you mean?
No,
It's breading
no,
and cheese.
no, no. I disagree.
Okay,
There's no
it's the
tomato. It's
same
the
thing.
tomato sauce of the pizza. It's not working with the
Oh,
milk.
that's
It's not.
that's what
It's
does
not the
it.
cheese. Yeah, it is.
That's what
You
does it. The
you
tomato
you
sauce.
listen. You can eat toast with milk. That's bread. A lot of people do that. You can put eggs on your cheese and have milk with it. A lot of people do that. So the only factor that we have left in the pizza that's not going with the milk is the fucking tomato sauce, or you're a hypocrite.
I'm a hypocrite. I don't drink milk with any of those items. I'm
Yeah,
not a
but
hypocrite.
if you saw someone eating toast and eggs with cheese melted on it for breakfast, and they had a cup of milk with
I
them,
still
would
think
you
they're
think
weird
any how,
because
dude?
if listen, the only items
Oh my.
if you do muffins, pancakes, uh, like waffles, those kind of items you drink milk with. cookies, like things like of those natures that
See, now you're
those
getting too on
things.
the nose with it. You're just picking
I'm picking the
Santa's
items
diet.
that
You have to eat
should.
what
If
Santa
I'm
does, or you can't drink milk. Is
no,
that what you're telling
bruh.
me?
What I'm saying is, what you're talking about, like bacon, eggs, toast. I'm drinking orange juice with that in the morning, not milk or coffee for other individuals that like coffee. I just don't like coffee. But yeah, that's like an orange juice breakfast, not a milk breakfast.
I kind of look at milk like the Jesus drink. You know,
Okay.
it's like, I mean, what does Santa Claus drink?
Well,
Milk.
I don't know how old our viewers are, but I mean,
What do
I
you
don't
mean?
know.
What is that supposed to mean?
I'm not gonna spoil anyone's childhood if they're out there.
There's nothing to spoil. All I'm saying, the mystical man drinks milk for a reason. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, with cookies.
Shut up. Shut up.
Okay,
I'm not
let's
here.
dive
I'm
into
not
this.
here for it. No, hold on. Before we do, we're gonna talk about Goodfellas in a minute, believe it or not. But before we do, I'm gonna put you on the spot then, since you're so fucking smart and you have such a high drink
Okay.
IQ. What's your drink of choice? You can drink one thing for the rest of your life, and it counts as water in terms of
See,
replenishing your
the thing,
system.
it's different for me. I have
Mm,
two different ones.
mm,
See, because like I'm perfectly fine with vitamin water as my one. Like, cause
mm.
I do enjoy vitamin water. That's not bad. And then I know I'm also being healthy with it, like, because it's the best thing probably for me. That's not just straight water.
Right. Because we can't do
But
that.
the Yeah,
None of
but the
that. None
only
of
other
that.
thing that I'd be like, if I didn't get fat off of it or anything, it'd probably be root beer.
Okay. That's a respectable answer.
Yeah,
That's respectable.
that's what I think yours would be. Besides
Root
fucking
beer?
milk.
I mean, I would
Yeah,
take
because
doc-
that
I, I would take Dr Pepper before I took root beer personally, and I
that's
love
what
root
I
beer,
thought
but
you should.
Dr Pepper's
Wow.
king.
Okay. All right. This guy totally switched up. He used to love what is it called, the IPW glass bottle root
I
beers.
still do.
But that used to be your favorite.
Oh my god. All right. Look,
You and your favorites have switched, bro.
all
I hate
right.
you
All
so
right. All
much.
right. Just get on with it. Goodfellas.
Okay. Anyways, I'll first talk about what it made in the box office and whatnot. But first thing was the movie cost 25 million,
Okay.
a decent little amount there.
Mm,
But what it did make back in returns was 47.1 million.
that'll work. It's almost double.
So yeah, the return of income was 88.40%.
Oh,
So that's pretty good.
he's
That's
getting
that
analytical with it.
yeah, the return of income is pretty high with
Mm,
this one.
mm.
But it is a 1990 American biographical. Is that the fucking word?
Biographical. Wait. Oh god. Now you're fucking.
Yeah,
Biographical. Dude. All right. Just continue. I can't speak
it's
either.
pretty much about a crime film directed by Martin Scorsese. The film narrates the rise and fall of mob associate Henry Hill and his friends and family from 1955 to 1980. This is actually based off of a real person.
Mm.
So it's not just a film that they just tied together. They were thinking of the Italian mafia. This is actually stuff that
Based on
did
true events.
somewhat happen.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Um, Goodfellas premiered in the 47th Venetia International Film Festival, where Scorsese received the Silver Lion Award
Real,
for
real
the best
quick.
director. Yeah,
Real
go ahead.
quick, before you get burned for this, I'm just trying to save you from any potential comments. It's a Scorsese is how you pronounce it. It's confusing when you
Oh,
look at it.
sorry.
Yeah, it's Scorsese.
Scorsese?
Yeah, it's fun to
Okay,
say though. So
Scorsese received the Silver Lion Award for Best Director. And then it was given the wide release in North America on September 21st, 1990. Let's see. And then Goodfellas grossed 6.3 million from 1,070 theaters in opening weekend, topping the box office at that time.
hmm.
The only actual like big award they received at the Academy Awards was Best Supporting Actor, which went to Joe Pesci. I think that's how you say his last name.
Joe
I don't
Pesci.
know.
You got you're
Joe
close.
Pesci.
Pesci.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was close. But yeah, so that was the only award that it got for him playing Tommy in the role. Um, so it got nominated for a lot of other ones, but that was the one that they actually won.
So I'm gonna do my research real quick because I didn't before I did this. But what? I wonder what. So what won Best Picture in 1990? Because I have a hard
Um,
time believing that it's better than Goodfellas. I do.
yeah, I can
But
pull that up, but
Driving
I
Miss
didn't.
Daisy is what won. That's a good movie, but I don't agree with that.
Bro, why is my
Anyway.
vision crazy? Driving. Yeah,
Oh wait, hold on. No, I messed up because that came out in '89, so it won for that
yeah, it
year.
did.
So it Dances with Wolves is what won. That is also a great movie. Kevin Costner, of course. Um, but yeah, you can continue. Sorry.
Okay. The next ones are more like interesting facts that most people probably wouldn't know about it. But so during a test screening, so like before it like actually got aired out, the audience members walked out during the very first scene when Pesci's character is stabbing the
In the
guy
back
seven
seat.
times.
Yep.
Yeah, so apparently
In
he
the trunk
stabs him
rather.
like 7 times. Yeah, in the trunk. Stabs him 7 times with the kitchen knife. But Scorsese eventually cut out the 7 stabs on screen down to 4 because of those individuals that walked out. But you can still hear the 3 additional stabs occurring off screen.
Wow.
So it used, which is I still think that's a very great opening scene as well.
It
I was
is.
blown away by that first part. I was like, oh shit, this is the type of movie I'm getting into. I was like, that's nice. But
Just
yeah,
to Scorsese, I just want to say real quick, let him leave. They're soft. Let him leave. Go
yeah,
ahead.
exactly. No, because I mean, I'm about to say like it sets a very big tone. If you, I mean, 4, yeah, but even 7, like bro, like that's a lot. Like I thought it was a lot with just the 4 as well, but I can only imagine watching him do it another like 3 times, 4 times. But yeah, and then another one is lots of the extras were guys that were connected in some way or another to organized crime. So some of the ones you actually saw on the screen were in organized crime in some way. Many of them actually knew the main character in real life, and one of the
Hmm.
extras would later be convicted of carrying out hits for the mob.
Hmm. Interesting.
They had a convict on set.
That is crazy. I believe it though. I mean, if you want to be immersive, that's one way to fucking do it.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if you want to get the
Why have
people to
people act
play,
like gangsters when you can just get actual gangsters themselves?
that's that big brain thinking right
It
there.
is. It is.
Um, Robert De Niro is a dedicated actor, so that he went all the way to developing the Jimmy Conway character. He called the real Henry Hill up to like 8 times a day to get every detail right about him. So he actually got in contact with Henry Hill, the main protagonist in this film, to actually understand how they lived back in the day and like get those kind of like just kinks and whatnot that they would move around with.
Mm.
So I thought that was pretty cool.
You can tell too. You really can. It's
Yeah.
very authentic in what it's showing.
Yeah. And then the last one I have just off the dome here is during the scene where Sonny begs Polly to take control of the restaurant. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about exactly off the top of your head.
I do.
But Scorsese told Sonny's actor to improv more, but didn't tell Paul that he was actually going to be improving. So this pretty much brought out real anger and confusion from Paul, who brought those emotions into the finish scene. So like when he says like he's like, "What do you want me to do? You want me to fucking kill him?" And he's like, "Yeah." So yeah, that'd be great. And like those like I don't that wasn't actually scripted in, and he just kind of came up with those things on the fly, and like you can see the guy get like pissed off and like confused, like why the fuck would you say that? So it's kind of like it's
That's
interesting
crazy.
to
So
me.
it's method acting to a yeah,
Yeah.
to its fullest.
I'm gonna take off my hoodie real quick. It's hot in my room, but that's pretty much the only fact. So you could talk for
Okay.
now.
I'll start us off with just overall thoughts, and then I want to get to you because you're more important in this part because this is your first time seeing the movie. But I'll start as somebody who is very, very, very familiar. A few reasons I'm familiar. First off, being about senior year of high school around that time. I was already really into movies at that point, but that was the point where I was super into movies, but I hadn't seen a lot of the classics. So what I would do is I would either just skip school and watch the movies, or I would be at school watching the movies. And I remember this one
Nice.
specifically, I saw for the first time, and you'll know what I'm talking about here. The audience won't, but I watched this for the first time, or at least the first half of it, in Academy one day.
Oh my god.
Um,
I
basically,
mean,
it's a
there's
free
nothing else to
period we
do.
have. Yeah, exactly.
That's probably better to do with your time than what other people were doing, I guess.
Exactly. And I had a long ass list of all these classic movies I needed to watch, and it just so happened that on one particular high school day, I watched Goodfellas at school, which was interesting. It's one of those movies. I had a lot of these, but it was sometimes hard to like come back to reality. Like if I actually had to do something for school, like this movie does a great job of immersing you in its world so much to the point where it's
Oh
like
yeah.
sometimes it takes a minute to step back out in the actual one, which is definitely a compliment. But yeah, I mean, listen, we're gonna do a lot of things, and obviously we're looking at everything through a critical lens. So we're gonna do a lot of things that we're gonna criticize. We did a little bit last week with Bottle Rocket. This one's gonna be harder to do that because at least from my angle, and we'll get to you in a minute, but from my angle, I mean, there's really nothing wrong with this movie at all. Um, in fact, it's quite brilliant nearly the entire time. My favorite part, and I think what carries this movie so much, for me at least, is the pacing and more specifically how it's structured. Um, the first half and second half almost feel like two different movies, but they
Yeah.
connect very well, and I really really love you. You mentioned that the beginning scene earlier when about the guy in the trunk, and to start with that scene that you're right sets the tone so well to then go back and really give us more insight into our main character and the entire gang and everything going on. Um, so when you get to that point where it's like you almost forget about that whole scene, and then you get to the point in the movie which where that scene takes place, and to have it just right in the fucking middle and then go
Yeah.
from there is brilliant. And it works so well. This movie's 2.5 hours long. It does feel long, kind of, but
It
it's
does.
paced so quickly and everything's so essential that it's hard to really criticize it for even being too long or feeling too long when everything's so important, and it just really works all in all. I mean, the
Mhm.
performances are fucking incredible, as everybody would already assume. The cinematography is top notch. I'm also pretty familiar with this movie. I've seen it a few times now, but I'm also pretty familiar because we actually studied a couple of the scenes in my film education course I took in college. The two ones I remember studying specifically were the one where they're going in the restaurant. It's Henry and Karen. They're walking through the restaurant. I guess to get to the front, but they go through the back where all the kitchen
Yeah.
area is. And we studied that whole scene because mainly because of just framing and the way that the camera moves and how it doesn't cut and it's kind of following the characters but it's changing, and it's very very well done. And then the other scene, which is one of my favorites, if I wouldn't say my favorite, one of my favorite scenes is when we also studied is when the guy across the street, um Henry
Yeah.
finds out that he did something to Karen and he goes over there and takes care of business. That's another scene that I remember looking at in that particular class. And yeah, I mean, it's just masterful filmmaking. There's really nothing else to say other than that in terms of general, because it's pretty much fucking flawless. It's one of, if not the best depiction of what it's trying to convey. It's super super authentic, like you said before, and some of those facts you gave us would be a reason why that is. And
Mhm.
it's just so effective in every sense. Storytelling, directing, acting, music, everything is on point. So yeah, I don't really have anything negative to say other than I fucking love this movie. It's one of, if not my favorite Scorsese film. I kind of go back and forth between this and King Comedy depending on what day you ask me, but God, man, this movie's so fucking good. But yeah, you watched it for the first time, so
Right.
I'm very
So
very
yeah,
curious to
I'm
hear.
going into this movie with very high expectations with what Rotten Tomatoes scores are, what
Just the
everyone else
general
says.
reception. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's a
everyone is
classic.
saying that this is, yeah, it's a classic, which
Yeah.
it definitely very much so is. I can see why people are saying that it is a classic. Um, and like, I mean, you pretty much hit a lot of the points, but it does everything it's supposed to do very well. I think with it being narrated and everything throughout the movie, it really makes you feel like you're involved within the crime that they're committing. Like you're not just a spectator, but necessarily with them in that moment, in those moments. Um, and yeah, so I was gonna say like hold on, I think because I'm trying to think about what you said as well, but the scene that you're talking about with them walking through the back and everything like that.
Hmm.
I've read it somewhere as well, but that scene took one of the more time than most with other scenes as well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That because the amount of times they actually had to like take those shots and everything like that, it took them like over like 8 to like 9 times to take those shots to get it all perfectly and cohesively together, which makes sense why you would have studied that within film.
So yeah, it's because it's
Uh,
hard to do that. I mean, most movies you see cuts and you see different angles, and but just the way that that one particular
yeah,
scene is shot, it's very, very, yeah.
yeah.
It's easily missable for somebody that's not looking for that kind of shit. But yeah, if you're paying attention, you can really tell just
Uh,
the
there was
filmmaking skill.
I
Yeah,
also thought this movie at some points was just funny as well.
it was. It was fucking
There's some
hilarious.
funny fucking, like, just whims they would have in this movie. I wrote down a couple, but, like, it's just crazy to me that
Daughter said you're
that
half Jewish, just the good half.
yeah. Yeah, and then, like, whenever, like, Tommy brings a girl into the bar, and then she was like, "Even if I look at anyone else, he would kill me." And then,
Yeah,
like, the
the chick
girl
next
just
to her.
says that
Yeah, she's
great.
like, oh, okay.
It's like, bruh. I'm like, "That is crazy." And then, oh my god, I mean, like, everything about it was amazing. And you can tell it was made in 1990s with and also just the way the world worked back in the day and everything. And it's just it really does give you an insight of how it was like back then.
It
Um,
does. No, it very much does.
yeah, and it does everything very well in that regard. So,
I think this movie
um,
just does such a good job of taking these characters through situations, and you kind of see just the way that everything plays out. And it's weird because I think that the movie it's so not I want to say focused on the plot, but like I said, there's really no fluff in this movie. But every place that they go and every basically every scene that takes place has some sort of significance in terms whether it's giving the audience a better understanding of the characters. An instance of that would be when they go to Tommy's mother's house, and you kind of get that whole dinner scene
yeah.
and things like that. It's really that kind of expands the audience's understanding of a character like Tommy. And I love that scene too, by the way. That's actually how it goes into the back to the beginning scene. It's right before, but when she holds up the
Mhm.
painting and the guy in the painting looks exactly like the dude they have in the trunk. Um, and then as soon as that happens, the camera pans over to the trunk, and then
And
it
he's beating
flips
at
right
the
right to the beat. It's so fucking brilliant. It's so purposeful. It's so like you can tell Scorsese really was. I mean, you can tell he was trying to make his opus with this movie. He was trying to
yeah.
make a statement. There is no like. It's just it's balls to the wall. It's fucking crazy. I love, like I said, I said earlier that the two halves were a little bit of different movies in a way, and I'll expand on that a little bit. I mean, the first half does such a good job of getting you and bringing you into this world and understanding these characters and understanding just this life in general. There's
Yeah.
really great scenes towards the beginning that are flashbacks where you see Henry as a kid, and you see his dad abuse him with the belt, um, which obviously kind of shows like why he's running or why he's choosing this life because it's just he sees his family struggling and his dad's working a 9 to 5 and they don't have anything and he's over here with an opportunity to do fucked up shit but he doesn't have to live like that and of course I mean what kid wants to follow in the footsteps of his father in this specific situation. So it just does
Mm.
such a good job of making you understand the character's motivations. And it also gives you a really good insight into how the mob actually works. Um, the
Yeah.
loyalty of it, and obviously Paulie, who I fucking love in this movie. He's so good every time he's on screen. Um, and just how everything kind of
Yeah.
goes
Paulie
through
rules.
him and obviously we get more they gets more and more into that later on as the plot kind of develops into what it is but the second half is it's interesting because watching it this time there really is a sense of paranoia and nearly the whole second half of the movie that you can tell Henry's going through there's many times and scenes in this movie where you can tell that this life is getting to Henry very much so there's a lot of nervous laughter and some of the shit that's going on. Sometimes it kind of focuses on it, sometimes it kind of lets it breathe in the background, but you can just tell. Or for another example, when they're burying the body and he's throwing up and you can tell he's just not right. Um, there's so many just nuances like that where you can just see the descent and Henry kind of losing his head as all the
Hmm.
things that he's involved in is really catching up with him, and it's just so expertly done. And that carries on obviously all the way till the end with the helicopter and the feds and everything. It's very admirable. So yeah, the way that this movie is structured and the way that this movie just flows specifically gives you so much information about all the characters in the world and at the same time manages to really drive this plot home and really get you involved with it. So it's very effective. Again, there's going to be very little I mean, it sounds like you loved it. So there's going to be very little things to critique. One thing I do want to say real quick though before I hand it back over to you, maybe we'll get into the characters here in a minute, but one of the one of the things that you said was about the narration, how well it was done, and you're right. And normally, I'm actually anti-narration in movies more times than not. I'm doing a little side project where I'm watching all the DreamWorks movies, and I watch Spirit. Um, and one of my big issues with that movie, maybe my biggest issue with that movie, is it has narration, but the narration is very much just telling us what we're already seeing, and it would be so much more effective if you just strip the narration out completely. And
Yeah.
you can tell that they kind of threw that in just in case kids didn't understand, even though it was very obvious what was going on. But it'd be like, something traumatic would happen, and then the narrator would pop in and tell you that he's traumatized. And it's just like it's things like that. It's anti-effective. But in this movie specifically, the way that it's done, the way that it's handled, and it kind of not necessarily laying out what's the word I'm looking for? Exposition. It's not necessarily laying out exposition as much as it is kind of like taking you through everything that's going on and giving you a better understanding of not only our main character but the world as a whole. So shout out to them, or shout out to Scorsese specifically, because that's something that normally is a huge issue for me when it is present, but it is
Mm.
very very well done here.
Um, So yeah, with the beginning of the movie, I was gonna say with the pacing of that, it does feel like when it comes to two different movies. The first half felt slower and it felt more, like an origin of what is going on. Like you said, it's introducing the characters. And like when I'm watching this movie for the first half, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, bro, like this doesn't sound bad at all. I'm like, this sounds like a like fuck. I get family for the rest of my life. I get, these people are ride or die individuals with me, and they're gonna,
Hmm.
protect me at whatever cause. I get whatever I want. I do this, and I have to just do a couple, bad things here and there, but it doesn't feel bad. And then the second half starts to kick off, and it feels like a faster paced movie, even though all of it is moving at the same rate. It just feels
Right.
more
It picks up.
intense. It feels more like anxiety. It feels more like they're coming after me. It feels more like it just keeps it just da 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 da, and it just goes and goes and goes, and it feels faster. And like what you said, two completely different movies in that regard. And then with the narration that you were talking about as well, I think this when it comes to narration, that's probably one of more of my favorite things they do with this movie, especially when he goes and meets Jimmy at the diner. When he meets
Mm,
Jimmy at the diner, and he says, he explicitly tells in narration why he's doing this, and like this is when he's starting to get paranoid about getting hit from people that he knows and stuff like that. And he's like, in the mafia, you're not gonna get hit with like, and they're gonna tell you. They're gonna give you a
they're gonna smile,
smile,
yeah.
take you somewhere, and then they're take you out in private.
And we see them
And
do
like,
that. The guy that
yeah,
was trying to get his
exactly.
money when they took him to the car, like we're gonna go get coffee, and they
Yeah.
just fucking shank him immediately.
Yeah. And like, and then the them saying like he's like, "Hey, I need you to go down to Florida and do a hit." And he's like, "Yeah, I'll do it." And then the narration kicks in. He says, "I know if I went down to Florida, I'd be not coming back."
I'm dead.
And
Yep.
just it lets you get that inside mental of Henry at that moment of
Right.
like, so and you know what's going on without them saying exactly what's going on.
How he's acting versus how he's actually thinking.
Yeah,
Yep.
because like when you say with narration, narration in that regards, like you could have just said with narrating, like, oh yeah, Henry goes into the fucking diner and you know meets Jimmy. It's like, yeah, we know that. You don't need to narrate that, but to narrate what he is, thinking, what he's envisioning, what's happening with him. Those kind of things were more of like what narration should be. And I think this movie does like if you wanted to learn how to narrate a movie, you should watch this one as well. And I think it would tell you how to do that. Um and
You
then other things,
good.
we can start jumping into the characters now as well if you want.
I was just gonna
Uh,
add real quick before you do. You said something that sparked a light bulb, and you said something very insightful, and something that the movie I think is very much trying to convey to you. That you said how it seems like a good life at first, and he's like, "This is awesome." Like he comes from a family that obviously is very very what's the word, disjointed and kind of all over the
mhm.
place, and so to have these people that are ride or die for him. One of my favorite scenes in this movie is um when he goes to court for the first time and then he
And
leaves and
yeah,
he's talking. He's
that's
like, I thought you'd be mad at me. And then he walks out of the door and everyone is there celebrating. It's like, it's so endearing, even though obviously
he
like
was
these
just
people are
yeah,
fucked up. But the lens that it tells you this through, especially in the beginning, it doesn't make them
as a
out
kid
to
as
be
well.
bad people. Yeah, exactly. And it's
As
like,
a
it's
kid, they're
very,
seen as good,
but it
Goodfellas.
but it's so true. I mean, and it's very true still to this day. I mean, this is very accurate to how gangs function. It's like it's about that brotherhood. It's about that
That
ride or yeah,
camaraderie.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
about like if someone else, if someone turns my back on me, I have a whole fucking mob to, do me right. And it's like there's just it really gives you that warming, welcoming feeling that Henry feels towards these people. And I think that is what makes this work so well because if it was so obvious at the beginning of the movie that these people are fucked up and even Henry would be fucked up, it kind of takes away from the fact that hey, these are real people with real emotions with real things going on too. And I think
Yeah.
it just does such an effective job at kind of illustrating that, like the warmth of having a gang or a mob or being a part of something like that. It really it makes the audience understand why Henry wants to be in this spot. And then as you see as the film progressive and things get fucking crazier and crazier, it's about shit catching up to you and about those early decisions that you made that felt good at the time and felt like your life at the time and how all that kind of comes back and destroys your future and obviously this film deals a lot with love, the interest in Karen, and then the girl he's cheating on with all the cocaine and shit with Sandy, and it really really
Crazy.
depicts off that very well. So yeah, just wanted to add
Um,
that in there.
yeah. Oh, so with let's just going into characters now.
Hmm.
With Tommy being the got getting the best supporting actor role from
Mm,
Joe Pesci. For me, when it came to watching it, I I mean I know I'm gonna go into why I'm saying what I'm saying, but like for me, like he was annoying as fuck
mm,
all throughout the whole thing. I was like I did not like him at all. Not like I didn't like Joe Pesci or not like I didn't like Tommy. I just did yeah, more like I didn't like Tommy. I just did not like the character Tommy, but I think the reasoning for that and why, I think that a lot of people may perceive that as like, bro, like fuck Tommy. Like why is he hanging out with this guy? You see what I'm saying? But in the end of the day, like it still is a family, regardless of who Tommy is. He's a part of this family that, and it's like the same with our kind of families. You have those individuals, those distant cousins that you're like, bro, like I don't
you
really
don't
fuck with that
like
guy. I don't
them,
even know.
but you love
Yeah,
them because you
but he's
have to.
exactly it's family,
Right.
and I think that's a good way to perceive that within the mafia with Tommy. Is Tommy's a very messed up individual, and like for him, it's like why would you hang out with him? But that's a guy that from a kid they got both, they joined both at like around the same exact time, and he can't he sees him still probably as that kid, and he knows what that kid has inside of him, and Tommy has a shell around him, and it's hard for him to not hang out with him or him not to be his friend, but we all know as the public viewing, like you should not
This
be
guy's
hanging
a
out with him
piece of
at all.
shit. Yeah. Well,
Yeah, exactly.
to add on that, or since we're getting into the characters here, it is interesting to hear that Joe Pesci was the only one to walk away with a reward, or I guess
Hmm.
not in a reward. They're all rewarded. This is one of the best films fucking ever made. But in terms of like an actual Oscar, um, but I kind of get it. Although it's odd to me that Robert De Niro wouldn't be just as applicable to that as Tommy was. And of course, I'm
Yeah,
talking about Jimmy's character there. But I do want to say that about Joe Pesci real quick. Yes, his performance is great, and yes, he is. He's one of those guys to me. It's like I wouldn't even say that I don't like him, but he really is a piece of shit. Now, granted, all these guys are
yeah.
a piece of shit, but he comes across as the biggest piece of shit throughout this thing. And my favorite, and you mentioned earlier about how this movie's like really fucking funny in an odd way, and I think
Yes.
he is a large part in that. My favorite probably whole part with him is with the bartender, the waiter. Um, when
Right.
he shoots him in the foot, and then
Oh, see,
finally he
yeah,
steps up. He's like, "Why don't you go fuck yourself?" And then he shoot. And this is like one of my favorite lines in the whole movie. He he goes, "He's dead." Like they're like yelling at him. He's like, "He's dead," and he just like nonchalantly he's like, "I'm a good shot."
I'm like, bruh, like that's like when like in those moments, I'm like, if I'm like even Jimmy at that moment, I'm like,
Yeah, you just want to see him
this
get
guy,
popped. Yeah, you want to
yeah,
see him
this
get
guy does
popped right
not need
there.
to be
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
And like it's very interesting with how his character goes out. It's like, and with that whole saying of they're gonna give you smiles and everything like that. I forget the actual term they use, but the term of when you get brought into the family, pretty much. You are now one of the untouchables within the family, and that's what they were gonna do with him when his with Tommy. And you see it right on his face when he goes into the room and he sees just a fucking whack ass room of nothing. He literally says, "Oh shit." He knows he's dead right then and there.
They
And
do
then
that scene very like I was gonna say too on his
very
death. Like
well.
it's very well, but it's also very sudden. Like it
Yeah.
almost
And
doesn't even give you time to really like you said. It's like you
mhm,
get that notion. You're like it's like oh shit, and then immediately it's like pop.
dead.
And
That's his
yeah,
last moment of his visions. He sees like a mop bucket and a fucking whack ass table and a chair, and he gets shot. And then they also say in the movie that they shot him in the face as well, so his mother can't do an open casket. I'm like, that is some shit right there. Like that's tough. And those people, you shook these guys' hands, you went to dinner with them, made these kind of jokes with them, and then now that's what they. It's like
well
that's
we see
wild.
we see a lot of that throughout this movie. I mean,
Yeah,
like we talked about earlier. I mean, the guy in the trunk. I'm blanking on his name. I want to stop calling him the guy in the trunk. But we see that whole scene with him and Henry's being very light with them and very like they seem very friendly. Like, hey, like we're gonna pay you. And then immediately after, they invite him out and they just kill him. And it's
are you
like,
talking about
fuck.
Morris?
Yeah, I think that's his name. Yeah.
See, I was gonna get into Morris later, but the thing about that was probably one of my biggest things with this movie is like Jimmy seems like he dealt with things right then and there, and he even did this with Morris earlier in the movie when Morris was already talking up to him like, "I was like, nah, you're gonna give me my fucking money," and then he fucking chokes him pretty much out with a phone cord. But then I don't understand why Morris was so much more into this movie as he was, where he continually complains throughout this movie, and that's just who his character was. It's just he complained about
He's the guy that needs his
getting the
money.
money,
Yep.
and then Henry's like, "Bro, you're gonna get your money." He's like, "Nah, fuck that. Jimmy owes me my money." It's like I'm like, I don't understand why Jimmy didn't step in sooner with how Jimmy's character was, especially at that time. He was very paranoid with everyone else. He was literally killing everyone left and right at that moment, and I don't know why Morris wasn't one of the first ones he already killed before then. But that was probably my biggest thing with Jimmy's character that I could that for a whole movie of it being untouchable. That was the one thing I could probably just touch within the movie. I was just like Jimmy would have killed this guy actually earlier on than what would have happened. I feel like,
I
but
also feel like, I mean, but to be fair, I mean, they had to kind of get him because where he was, I mean, the primary place that he was complaining about the money was in a very, very public setting where I don't think we could just kill him
yeah,
then,
but you
right?
could
So
take
they
him
had to
out
leave
bad.
him.
You'd be like, oh no,
Yeah.
no,
The money,
no,
yeah,
I
you
got
could
your money.
use the
We can
money.
talk
Yeah.
about it. It's like you know what I'm saying. Like, there's so many like Jimmy knows how to. I mean, I talking like I know the guy in person, but like it feels like Jimmy knows how to take care of somebody when he wants to take care of somebody. It seems like he just waited that one out a little bit longer than I think all of us kind of were expecting him to do it sooner.
I also love the
Um,
scene where he's like getting onto everybody for like using the money like
yeah,
right away, and then even Henry like he like promises him he's not gonna spend it, and then he comes home like the next scene he comes home with the most expensive Christmas tree that they
yeah.
had.
That lights a light bulb in me as well. That scene was very interesting to me how long it got drawn out with the first guy that walked in with the car. And he sits there and he's like, "What the fuck's the matter with you?" And then he keeps saying, "I'm sorry." He
Yeah,
just
what the fuck
literally
is
just
wrong
keeps
with you?
he just keeps saying,
Stupid or
I'm
something?
sorry." And yeah, and like it just and he just sits, he stands there and they just like nothing is being said for like 20 seconds. And
Yeah.
then he just it continues and it repeats itself again. It does itself again and I'm
It
like,
it
that's
almost
weird to
it,
me.
it almost feels like it's trying to build up tension, like that there's a possible chance that Jimmy might just kill Tommy right there.
Yeah. What was it? That wasn't Tommy in that scene. It was some other big guy that wasn't really I don't
Oh,
even
we're talking. I got you. I know
you
what you're talking about. Are you talking about?
oh
Oh, are you talking about the what the fuck is so
the pink
funny scene?
car. No, 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 no. So when they did the big score, the $6 million score,
Yeah.
and then Jimmy walks in and he sees or no, sorry, Jimmy's already there and he sees Hill and then like they hug. And then the next guy walks in with his wife and he's like, "Yo, Jimmy, look at this car." And he
The
shows him the car.
Cadillac.
It's a pink car, yeah, a pink Cadillac. And he's like, "What the fuck's the matter with you?" He's like, "Why the what
Yeah.
I fucking tell you?" He said, "Don't spend anything big right now." It's like it's a lot of heat, and he was like, "I'm sorry." He's like, "I'm sorry, Jimmy. It's." He's like, "Don't worry about it. It's under my mother's name and everything." But that if you go and rewatch that whole thing, that was a long
Yeah,
encounter,
it
just
draws
them
out.
two, and like it was, and yeah, and like it pauses for like a lot of seconds of like just him sitting there looking at his face, like being defeated, like if he was like a child, and he's right next to his wife, and Jimmy's just sitting there like you got fucking something to say, and he keeps saying I'm sorry and whatnot, and it's I thought that was a very interesting part of
Hmm.
that whole scene because the other people he wasn't like that with, he was just like what the fuck are you doing, go back, take this back, but with him it was drawn out a little bit longer.
Hmm.
It was weird, but yeah, that was my big thing with that scene as well.
Now,
Um,
while we're on characters, and we kind of brought him up, and we can talk a little bit. The first thing I want to say about Jimmy, of course, played by Robert De Niro. We'll get to the main character here in a minute, but I just want to say, and I think this every time I see Robert De Niro in a movie, old or new, but he looks like this movie came out, and this is the crazy thing about it, this movie came out over 30 years ago now, and Robert De Niro doesn't look like he aged a bit since this, which is
oh,
really
I think he's
bizarre.
aged. I think he's aged.
Dude,
To me, look.
he still looks very
No, he does
similar.
not look
Yes,
that
he
way.
does.
You got to pull up some pictures of him because he does not look the same way
Dude,
he does in this one.
I
Yeah,
disagree.
he has some of the same features, but there's more wrinkles. There's
I
more
mean,
gray.
yeah, but like I don't
He's
know. I
older.
think it's a
He's
little
older.
less obvious than you're stating. But
From older
maybe
movies,
I'm just
yeah,
crazy.
but
Maybe I'm just crazy. But I remember seeing him in Joker, and he looks very
he does
similar.
not look the same. He's gained weight, and he does not. He looks yeah. He's gonna have some of his facial features, and shit like that. But it's not. He looks. I mean, the movie was portraying him to be 29 in there, and I still wouldn't even put him
Oh
at
yeah,
29.
yeah, he was older.
Yeah, I was like, they were trying to say he was a 29-year-old, and I was like,
But that's what I'm
cap,
saying. How
bro.
old he looks in this movie, I would think he'd almost be dead at this point.
Okay.
If we're being
Okay.
honest.
In 1990, it's only been like what, 2 decades, roughly?
3.
19,
It's been 30
yeah,
plus years.
30 plus years, and he was probably what when he made that movie?
Let's see. Let's do the math. Let's figure out how old
How old?
Robert De Niro is.
Yeah, how? Like, you just look it up. You just type in Robert De Niro, and find
What
out
do you
his
think I'm
age.
doing?
You said like add. I was like, bro, you don't need to do any like math. Just look it up.
He's 79 now, so he
Yeah, he doesn't. I mean,
was
I wouldn't say he
late
necessarily fully
40s.
looks 79, but he does look around there now. Then I wouldn't have said he looked 79.
I don't know, man. I'm looking at pictures of him. Like he still looks oddly, especially compared to like how Joe Pesci looks now.
Hey, the
Like it,
Italian. I'm telling you, that skin it ages well though, compared to other skins.
so now the narrative changes when it's in your
Yeah.
favor. Mm,
Oh, dude, the Italian skin, the
mm,
Sicilian skin.
mm,
Jeez, bro, that
mm.
shit ages. Like, you see my grandma? Fucking, she's like 80 something. She looks 70
How
as
does it?
well. She looks 10 years younger.
How does the Caucasian skin age?
Not that well.
Oh, great. Okay, cool. Um,
That's probably the worst skin to age, I'd say,
oh,
when it
perfect.
comes to all the skins
That's
in the
good for me.
world.
That's good for me.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. All
let's.
right.
I have a little bit of Irish in me. Maybe I'll be fine. I don't know. Our main character, of course, played by Ray Liotta, Henry. What'd you think of his performance, his character in this movie?
Um, my thing with this character in this is he is the protagonist, obviously. But and I do think he's more of a sponge within this movie, and it's more of everyone around him that is a character that we're more witnessing it within through his lens
So he's a
of who
product
he
of the
is.
people around him.
Right. Like
Mm,
Paulie is a dad to him.
yeah,
Tommy's like a son, or not. Sorry. Tommy's like a
a
brother,
brother. Yep.
and then Jimmy's like a distant cousin, and like or like the fun uncle in a sense. And like
Mm,
those, these characters are making who, not necessarily making him who he is, but just like it shows the life of the mafia through his life, and it's not really more about him without a couple scenes within like the drama and the love life. Those are with him, yes, and like his best scene hands down is when he goes beats up the guy across the street.
yeah,
For
I
me,
agree.
that was probably his best performance within this movie. Um, it just he showed the most emotion, all that kind of stuff, but throughout the whole movie, it feels like he's still that kid that not necessarily he belongs, but not as much as like Tommy does. And he's more of just he didn't want to do what his dad did, but more of he wanted to do something that knows he can make a lot of money doing it. And you get to see him be more like Tommy in ways throughout the mafia of he takes his own route disregard of what Paulie said. He does like I said, that second half feels like a
Yeah.
different him. It's not who he is anymore. He's just changed a lot. And so yeah, I think it's like that he was that sponge in the first, and then everything that he gained from everyone around him, he took into that second half, and it necessarily didn't mold him to be better. It just made him a complete chaos of a mess. So
What I
yeah,
wa-
I
what
think
I
that's my thing with him.
yeah, what I want to add too, and about this character, and I wonder if maybe you agree, but throughout the movie, I feel like a lot of his most effective acting is when he's not talking. Um,
Yeah.
they do a lot. Like I kind of alluded to it earlier, but they do a lot with just his facial expressions throughout the movie, where there's many scenes where it's like he's not saying anything, but you can kind of read how he's feeling about certain things. And like I said, a lot of nervous laughing, a lot of laughing because he has to, a lot of just, genuine disgust at times, obviously anger. Um, but you can I just feel like his performance is very, very believable and very telling, and honestly, more show don't tell,
Hmm.
that kind of method. So I really, really appreciate that about his performance. I think it's actually quite nuanced. Um,
Yeah. I think that you say that very well when it comes to he didn't have to say much to understand who he was in that sense. So we got the sense of who Tommy is, or not, sorry, not Tommy, but who
Henry, very
yeah, Henry
early,
was. Yeah,
very early.
early on.
Yeah,
And, like when he was a kid, he seemed like he wanted to be hardworking. He wanted to do things for these guys, and he wanted to be one of them in a sense, regardless of what his parents said. And you see that throughout the whole movie of him also, doing these things for Tommy, doing these things for Jimmy, and even though like fuck, I don't even know I would. I'd be like, bro, this is
and
crazy
they
what
have,
you're
yeah,
making
I
me
was gonna
do.
say they have this kid doing some very obscene shit for his age. I mean, there's a scene where he like lights like 5 cars on fire.
Yeah,
It's like holy
and
shit, this kid
talking,
is like
yeah,
15.
and he was talking about how much money
Like,
he was making, more than he can even spend at that time, and everything. It's like it's very easy as a kid to now to think, be a sponge, and like you're just taking in all the information. Like, why would I work
yeah, and you're a
like
product of your
8 hours?
environment. Yeah.
Yeah, like why would I work 8 hours like my father and not make a single dime, rather than blow up 5 cars in 30 seconds and make thousands of dollars?
What one
Just
scene that sets the tone up well why we're here because this happens in the same little stench. But one scene that I think is very telling of just like the overall tone of the mob is when his dad gets the letter from the school that he hasn't been showing up, and then they pull up to like the mailman who is clearly like very fucking innocent in this case. Like he's literally just
Yeah.
doing what he's supposed to do, and they beat the living shit out of him to make sure that he doesn't, doesn't get any more letters or doesn't deliver those letters to his house. Like there's scenes like that where it's like, yo, like these kids are not fucking around. Like and it could be it's like very small, like they're gonna get what they want regardless of how aggressive they have to be, even if the situation calls for much less aggression than what they show. And that scene is a perfect example of that. That scene's always like fucking hilarious to me. I'm like, dude, this poor mailman has done nothing wrong, and now he's getting the shit kicked out of him for literally nothing.
It's funny because the kid pointed out, he's like, "Yeah, that's him. That's the guy."
Yeah,
It's
I
like,
know.
bro,
Yeah.
I'm just the guy that delivers the mail. What do you mean I'm the guy? That is crazy. With one character that was actually, I'm trying to think about my favorite character in the movie, and I think this one is up there top three for me. Is his wife though? I think his
Okay.
wife performed
Yeah.
amazing throughout this whole movie. That she really did just perform like everything about it, and like like literally, I felt for her with all the different fights she had with Henry. And like it really with like my past and my childhood, it made me like actually sit there and be like, damn, this is like
Well done.
real shit. Like yeah, this is I mean like amazing. And then like the whole term gaslighting, bruh, this
Yeah.
movie with him
Oh,
gaslighting
yeah.
her is
This movie
I
is just
mean
gaslighting.
yeah, like it is crazy. She's like, I know this woman. He's like, bruh, she's like, you're fucking crazy. Like you're wild. It's like, bro, the scene just before this, you were with. I'm like, that is crazy.
Yeah.
Like this, that is wild to me.
And
Um,
I'm not saying that like this is gonna sound almost sexist at first, but
oh
just
god,
hang with me.
let him cook.
I
Let him cook.
I kind of want to group all of the female characters in this together because what I think that this movie does a very interesting spin on the cliche stereotypical wife. And not even just her case, but even like there's a scene where she's kind of with all of her other. I don't know specifically. I guess it was all the girlfriends or wives that were a part of the mob, or not
It
a
was all
part
the
of it, but
wives.
that
Were
were
they doing their
associated with it.
makeup?
Yeah.
Yeah, the wives.
And they
Yeah.
go on and they kind of like you get a lot of insight, and they kind of talk about how they're all treated and they're all getting like abused and treated horribly and all this shit. And I feel like this movie is really trying to not necessarily even criticize, but kind of show a little bit more insight into the psychology of women that are abused for men with status. And I think that's a very prevalent theme. I think a huge theme of this movie is loyalty, and when loyalty
Yeah.
is a fault, and you have all these women that are, they're it's hard to explain, but it's like obviously they all have, or their husbands rather have status and money, which is what most people want, but um they're all treated poorly. Real love doesn't really seem to be a thing in this kind of world. Obviously, I don't personally believe that Henry really loved Karen like that. Obviously, um, but yeah, they kind of show you a little bit more into the abuse. Obviously, there are scenes throughout this where Karen is just getting fucked up, and then obviously there's a scene where Karen. And that's one. I think my favorite scene with Karen is when she's holding the gun at
Hmm.
Henry when he awakes. That's a very very powerful scene, and you can really like speaking of just her selling the role. That was a great instance of her doing that. You can tell like she's losing
Yeah.
her fucking mind for obvious reasons, and when she tries to
Um.
pull up to Karen's apartment and or not sorry not Karen's Sandy's apartment.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and then she
I.
narrates as well. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but also she narrates as well. Um, and it does the same thing that you're
Yep.
kind of saying that it was that they're doing with Henry, where it's like really giving you an insight into the psychology because there's narration pops up in that scene, and she's like, no matter how much like he pisses me off, like I can't hurt him, like I don't have it in me to hurt him.
Um. The only I would. I'm gonna start. I'm just gonna start off with I disagree. That's the first one I'm gonna say with what you said about um that Henry doesn't love her in that sense, and also grouping them all together. I can't say what all the other women went through, obviously,
Hmm.
but for Karen, I felt she was a ride or die. Like she
Yeah,
will
for
die for
him,
you at that. Yeah, for him. And for Henry, when it comes to not loving her, yes, is he a fucked up individual? I'm not saying he's not. He definitely cheated on her. He definitely did all these things. But then again, back then when it right then and there, it seemed like that was a normal thing. It seemed like all of them had a girlfriend. It seemed like that was just a thing. And the cocaine girl was more of he was using her like hell. Like
Yeah,
he was
for
he
money. Yep.
yeah, like that he was just using her. Like I don't even think that was an
Well,
affair necessarily because he
there.
didn't. There was never a time where they showed him having sex. There was never a time that they in like. Oh no, there was one. I'm sorry, there was that one.
Yeah, there
There was
was
one
one.
scene that they had the sex thing. Yeah, but it was more for the cocaine and money that she was being used for. But like I think the one scene that kind of states that he does love her in
Yeah.
that sense is when he does get out of jail and he figures out that she flushed the cocaine down the toilet and whatnot.
Oh, and then he hugs
And
her in the corner.
yeah, and they hug in the corner, and then they go to bed together and you know and whatnot. I think that that scene kind of shows he fucking is so aggravated with her, but at the end of the day, she's still family, and he does love her, and
And like there
it's
is
you
a
know
scene
she
earlier
did her
before that. It,
best.
it shows character development because there is a scene like before that where he like throws a lamp at her. And
He doesn't throw it. I don't even think he was throwing it at her.
yeah,
Even if
that's
she
true.
ducked, I think it was still was
Yeah.
going over her. I don't think he was gonna throw it at her. There was no. He does
Okay.
grab her a couple of times and whatnot, but yeah.
Here, here's my thing. I mean, I'm of the mind of and maybe this is see, it's interesting because you made me think about it, and there is some truth I think, and this movie kind of shows you a little bit that I wouldn't call Henry a good person. I don't know if that's the word I would use, but I will
Mhm.
say that he seems to have a little bit more of a soul than
Yeah,
most of the people around him. And I think that's
I
what you
think that
kind of see
shows.
him deal with, like throughout, kind of what I was talking about
Mhm.
earlier with the method acting, where you can just see like his facial expressions and the way that he's reacting to certain things. I mean, he's not pleased. Like when Tommy shoots that waiter that I was talking about earlier, you can tell like Henry is
He's like, bro, what the
not
fuck?
pleased with that. Yeah, so it's like I don't
Even
think there isn't like I'm not saying that there's not humanity in this man, but I guess it's just of the mind of like, if you really really love somebody, do
why
you
would you do
cheat
those
on them?
things
And,
too?
but and I
Yeah.
would agree with you because I wrote that down as well about how he was using Sandy for coke, which maybe be something that developed obviously after this. But there was one scene where they do show. I mean, he kind of like playfully pushes Karen on the bed with all of her Sandy was there. And then
Yeah, I
there's
remember
that
that
scene
scene too.
where they make that eye contact and you kind of know what's
That
up.
they're gonna
Yeah.
yeah.
So
I mean, in that moment, we don't know what he's thinking. Obviously, he's showing that he's a dominant man, and she is obviously loving it. But he, in it, like we can interpret that in our own eyes. Of is he just seeing her as another toy, or is he saying, "I know a reputation of I can get something out of this woman, and I can get money in this situation." So like there's different ways to look at even that moment as well to me.
I guess
Uh,
you used the word gaslight earlier, and I do kind of feel
Bruh, that
like she
is
was getting
wow.
gaslighted this entire movie, which is
Oh,
why I
she
say I
was.
don't know if he really loved her because I don't know if that's a part of it. But
Yeah, I mean, love is bliss.
I see
I
where
don't
you're
know.
coming from because it plays with that where it gives you some scenes where it's like, well, you can tell like I'm not saying that he doesn't care for her,
Yeah, I mean, he's the mother of his
but
kids. I just, I
yeah,
don't know it.
maybe.
I mean, he doesn't even interact with his kids at all in this fucking movie. Like like maybe once he like touches them, and then literally he's like, all right, we gotta move.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Like,
yeah, they don't go into that at all. Like
yeah, he
the only
just
scene
there's
that focuses on the kids is when like shit's going down.
yeah, like there's nothing.
Yeah.
There's no part where he's showing enjoyment towards his
And
kids.
where he's getting chewed out for cheating, and then he like abruptly leaves the apartment. Like it shows the daughter, I think,
That
standing
is
by the
hilarious
door,
to
just
me.
looking at
Or
him.
no, not that one. The hilarious scene is when the first time he was out with Tommy and he gets home and her mom starts yelling at him at the door. He's like, "Yeah, I don't got time for this," and he
Yeah, just
walks
leaves.
away.
Yeah,
I feel that
yeah.
is hilarious to me because like that is so funny. I don't know why, but it's just like he's like, "Yeah, bro, I'm not dealing with this right now." But yeah, I think she did a an amazing job in this movie, and I again with the scene of I think she was more of a smarter individual in this movie than others as well
I
when it came
agree.
to the
Yeah,
scene of where and this is also a good thing for this interpretation of what we think and how Jimmy was already killing individuals and he was like, yeah, you can go around this corner and get something for your mom, and like he may have been just being nice. We don't necessarily know. It was a
yeah.
very sketchy
It
situation,
was.
but
It was.
yeah, but like it plays into the point of they're all being very paranoid, and she could have just been paranoid in that situation, or it
Or
was actually
yeah, she was getting
she's
set up. Yeah.
yeah, she was gonna get set up, and she was smart enough to go away. Like regardless of what I'm thinking, even if I think like, oh, nah, he's not gonna do that, I'd still go away too.
Like fuck
But
that.
but for it also to be interpretation of like, oh, maybe it could have been, is it all in our heads? What the fuck's going on? I think that was very good direction as well from Scorsese.
I
So
I do think they do a good job of making her feel like a real character. I mean, movies, especially from this time, and it's something that's kind of, I mean, feminists use this angle a lot, but especially in movies during this era, the female characters, the wives specifically, tend to kind of fall under this like muse role and not really have their
you see that.
own thing.
I'm not meaning to cut you off, but like when you talk about they're all standing, they're all
Yeah,
sitting in the and doing the makeup like that. They all do that, but she stands out.
right.
She is a protagonist in that part of that movie
And
of like
it,
we're focused on her.
and it's kind of alluding because she's kind of like she's what she is to that group, what Henry is to his group
Right,
in
exactly.
a lot of ways
Yeah.
too. So there's a
That's pretty cool to think
dichotomy
about it that
there.
way as
Yeah,
well. Yeah,
yeah,
it's pretty like it's almost like they're made for each other.
right, right.
But yeah.
Real quick, we'll jump to the plot in a second. Even though I think we've kind of already touched on a lot of the plot, but
Mhm.
I do want to say shout out. I shouted out Paul Cicero earlier. Um, or sorry, Servino. It's confusing because their names are the same in real life and acting. But I thought he did such a great job and was very convincing as a mob leader. I like that he doesn't talk a lot. I like that he only likes talking to one person at a time. He's very mysterious, and I like that a lot. I think that's a
Yeah.
important trait for a character like that to possess. And I also wanted to shout out before we move on something that I almost always forget about until I watch it again. But Samuel L. Jackson's little appearance in this movie is great, and it's
Oh
so
yeah.
subtle and like they don't really do it. Like, you kind of see him in one scene. I think the first time you see him is in the bar, and then obviously you see him get fucking whacked. But
Oh,
but
don't
yeah, it's just
smoke weed in the
it's
car.
fun to see him here. It's fun to see him here,
Yeah.
as it always is to see Samuel L. Jackson anywhere. But
Yeah, no, it was yeah, I mean, he didn't do anything crazy, but yeah.
no, 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 no. I'm just saying it's cool to see. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, that's pretty much all I have on the characters. I mean, if you have anything else you want to add, you can do that. Otherwise, we can start talking about the plot.
The only thing is just with Paulie as well being that father figure and everything, and yeah, I think he also was one of my up there with the top 3 of my favorite, like the favorite actors of this movie, and everything that he portrayed. But like the scene that where he gets out of or Henry gets out of jail, and he's pretty much telling Paulie that he fucked up and
It's like I
and
thought you'd be
everything, and
disappointed, or yeah,
yeah,
thought you'd
and
be
he's
mad at
just
me.
like listen, he's like, take this, but he's like, now I gotta turn my back on you, and it's like I can't, we're not together anymore. It's over.
Oh, you're talking
I
about
was
the
like,
end scene. Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah,
Sorry. I
like
thought
we're
you meant because there's two scenes where that happens. Because when he was a kid, he left the court and talked to him for a minute before he stepped out.
mm.
But
No, the one where
okay.
the one where he gave
He
him like
gave him
the
the money,
3,200 bucks.
and then he's
Yeah,
like, "Yeah, now I'm gonna have to turn my back on you." Yeah.
I was like, that's tough.
Very
That's a tough
effective.
scene
Very
as well.
effective. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um.
Go ahead.
Cool. No, I mean that's pretty much all I have on this section.
Okay.
So yeah. Without we can talk about the plot now. Um. I do want to say because I was thinking about this when I was watching it. Is like the first we talked about how the two halves kind of feels like different movies, but the first half very, and I think it's obviously like this on purpose, but it almost feels slice of life. Like there's no real factor driving the plot other than it's following this main character in his life and just kind of easing you into this world that he's in. Like there's not really like there is a plot, but it's kind of more about just kind of seeing the environment that Tommy's in and just really trying to get the audience to understand it. And then I think the second half of the movie is where the plot really like kicks in and like okay, now there's a story, now we're following shit, now we're getting there. Um but yeah, like the second half, it just does such a good job of showing you just like the paranoia that these characters are going through, specifically Henry and Karen. Um
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it's just like it's weird. Like we talked about it earlier, but it's like it just does such a good job of it's like increasing paranoia, but so subtly and slowly. It's like the more and more shit that happens, the more and more you can kind of sense Henry losing his fucking head. And obviously, like for some reason, I remember Coke being a bigger play in this movie than it really was. It is towards the end. Like I don't think you see
Yeah.
cocaine in this movie until like an hour and a half in.
Yeah, like they
But
make it's very weird because like it seems like he turned into like a drug dealer in the sense of like throughout everything that is he's gone through. I'm like that was never any like hit or anything that y'all did before this. I don't know now why, like, is it now like showing like a coming of times of this? Now we're getting into an era where cocaine was starting to get big, and drugs and all that kind of stuff. So he was trying to get ahead of the curve and start making money off that. I mean, that I guess, but
Yeah, like
it was a great, yeah,
yeah, I don't know. It is interesting because they don't. You're right. They don't. I mean, aside from like cigarettes, you don't really see any drugs or
cigars,
anything. Yeah, and cigars. You don't really
yeah.
see anything of that metric kind of getting shown until much later, which is interesting. Um, yeah, I don't know, but it is like a pivotal point in the plot, obviously later
Yeah,
on.
he starts doing
Um,
drugs. His mind's not all there. It's getting mushy. A lot of
Karen has that
it's,
line to
it's
him where it's like
fucking
that
with your
stuff's
head.
starting to make you get paranoid, even though,
Yeah.
which is like yeah, it's a good little line there because, well, yes, that's true, but it's also like is a situation that calls for paranoia. Um, and then like as obviously at the end when the helicopters follow, and there's just a lot of tension that slowly gets built up. Like you're kind of losing your mind with Henry in a lot of ways throughout this movie.
Hmm.
Um, which is yeah, and that's kind of how I see the plot of this movie is kind of just like not necessarily like the entire plot's a plot device, but the plot is a vehicle to kind of demonstrate how this life affected Henry and ultimately became Henry. Um, and even like refusing to change his ways, really. Like we see he's in prison for what, 4 years? Like there's a 4 year time jump in this. And
Yeah.
and he
And he
comes
gets out
out
on
and he's still
parole.
he's still trying to do the same bullshit, which just shows it's like it's like what they say about, people in the hood. It's like you can take the people out of the hood, you
You can
can't take
take
the
him
hood
out
out
of
of
the
the
hood, but
people.
you can't
Yeah,
take out the hood.
it's
Yeah,
like that
yeah.
saying. It's that kind of demonstration. But yeah, like I said, just very effective all in all. It's super. It builds tension very well. It explores the characters very well. It does everything that it needs to do to make everything in the movie work. I just don't think that this movie's intention is necessarily the plot. It's more about the insight into this life and what was going on, kind of in the mafia and how it would operate.
I think,
It was
and
much
they
more about
go
that.
they go hand in hand with that, with like, so like within being in the mafia, right? It's showing the story of how they operate and how it comes about to even becoming within the mafia, right? And with the themes of Goodfellas is, it's a sense of belonging and loyalty, which is what the mafia is as well, in the sense of very much so on the loyalty side, but even belonging of, you need to work your way into this. You're not just gonna just get accepted in. You have to show that you're loyal. You have to show that you're willing to do these things, and then you have a sense of belonging in that sense. Um,
Which is why they were all excited when he got through his first court, because
yeah,
he didn't
exactly.
open his mouth. He did
Yeah,
exactly what they told him to
that's
do. He's like, "Shut the
that's
fuck up, say
showing.
nothing."
Yeah, that's showing that you're belonging. It's showing that you're actually, gonna do that and or take that extra step to become one of us. And so yeah, I think that the theme and like everything in that sense go hand in hand with what the movie was even trying to portray. So, but yeah, that's my whole thing about the theme of the movie.
They also show a lot of corruption throughout too. I was gonna bring that up.
Oh yeah,
There's
like
there's
cops
yep,
and
there's one scene where the cops get paid off. Um,
I was trying. What was this? It was the scene, the first when he literally is that court scene where he's a kid and the judge looks at his lawyer and the lawyer just smiles, and then you already know
yeah,
that judge has seen that lawyer many times and he knows what's up.
yeah,
Like he knows exactly what this case is going to be, and he knows already in his mind that it's going to be non guilty and it's going to be fine.
which is good. This
Uh,
this movie does a good job of really making you understand that like the mob really runs this. Like they
yeah.
really are like even above the government, above the police. Like they really are like the top dogs in terms of power and control.
Hmm.
And that comes from money, of course, which is just I think kind of a bigger statement in general about how where there's money, there's power. Um,
Yep.
Agree or disagree. That's kind of the moral of it. But yeah, do you have anything else on the plot, or do you want to start getting into Mr. Scorsese here and talk more about his involvement with this?
You can do that part because we
Uh,
can move on to that. I
We've
think it's
again things that we've kind of already touched on a little bit. We kind of already talked about some of the scenes that really stand out. Um, this movie's so good at God, I'm so good at a lot of things, but um, the way that this is shot throughout, but specifically in like the bar scenes and in the scenes when they're in social settings, it's the use of lighting. I love like there's a lot of red lighting that's used in this movie, a lot of dark rooms with red lighting, but it's just like it does such a good job of looking like how you imagine it would if you were to picture all this happening in your head. It's very true to the time as well in terms of not only how people act but how everything looks. Um, yeah, but like overall, I mean, this thing is it's one of the best directed movies ever. The camera work here, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but the camera work here is fucking phenomenal. This entire time. There's a scene where the camera pans out and it's just Jimmy smoking a cigar with I can't remember the song that's fucking playing behind him. It's irking me. Um but it's just such a powerful shot, and there's so many scenes like that where it's like Scorsese's just known for saying a lot with just a shot of something. It's telling you
Yeah.
a story
Wasn't
just in the shot.
one of them
It's
that
impressive.
I think does
Also
it the
love the
best.
corner scene. Sorry, good.
One of the ones I think does that a lot as well is when you talk about red and just the color red and what even the color red can symbolize.
Hmm.
In the sense with them, anytime they were dealing with the dead body, the whole area is lit up just by the brake lights of the vehicle,
Right,
which
when
is
they were
red.
burying the body and he was
Yeah,
throwing up,
burying the
yeah,
body, and also digging up the body again to move it. Anytime they were dealing with that body, it was the brake lights of redness that was being shown, and like just the symbolism of the color red, and what you can think of when it comes to those kind of things, really just even tells a story within itself
right,
as well.
right. Yeah,
So,
I love that scene that I was talking about where he's throwing up when they're burying the body, or when
hmm
Henry's throwing up, and you just there's that red lighting. It's very, very visceral, but it's super, super fucking effective. Like it just,
oh yeah,
yeah, it just, God, Scorsese obviously directed the shit out of this movie. I mean, this shit is, it's very
mm,
Scorsese too. Like I think a lot of his landmarks really, really show in this movie, specifically his environmental capability of just, like I kind of said it earlier, but like, just having everything around kind of really really immerse you into whatever specific scene it is. One of my favorite shots of the whole movie, this is one that we talked about earlier, um when he figured out that she sold all the dope that he had hidden or whatever. It was like $65,000 worth or however much it was, and
60, yeah,
and
just
and, the,
60.
and it just it lingers on them in the corner, and you can just you really feel everything that's going on and you really understand it. um
Hmm
but there's just a lot of effective subtle things like that, again, this movie is very smart with letting the camera linger at certain points. um it's very very noticeable, and
Yeah,
yeah.
like when those kind of scenes where it's not much is being said, but just the emotions behind the eyes of the characters or their actions is telling the story for you. You don't necessarily need the words. And with that scene and the scene I was talking about earlier as well, with the long pause of whenever he bought that pink Cadillac, it's like there was words being said, but then there's times where it wasn't, and it's like it felt so heavy in that moment. And so I think he does that very well with just the cinematography and everything else that he brought. So,
Well, there you go. Good job, Scorsese.
yeah,
Right,
not
literally
much to
nothing to
say in the
criticize.
bad part. Yeah, like there wasn't anything when it comes to the film that I can say like, yeah, that could have been different, or this doesn't feel the best. This could have been, and like, no, it was if everything felt how I would perceive it being if I was the individual at that time doing it.
Mm,
It doesn't feel like it's out of place at all. I think everything feels correct, and it feels like if it felt like it was also like based off of real events, but it feels like it was just the real events. Like it felt like this was just bar for bar, like it was what happened. It maybe it was like that, or maybe it wasn't, but it felt that way throughout the whole movie, and it just does that very well. So,
I was gonna say too, just real quick, because I said it earlier. So the song that was playing that I was trying to think of when it was panning away from Jimmy smoking the cigar, it was "Sunshine of Your Love" by Cream, which is an
mm,
iconic song. I'm also trying to see because I was looking into who was doing the music for this movie, and it seems like from what I'm reading that actually Scorsese was the one that was handling the music for this.
yep,
Um,
he picked more popular songs within the time frame
mhm.
from what I saw as well. He was, and he just, wanted to use things within the time frame of around that time when, what they would have listened to in that sense and everything like that, and things that would set that tone. So, but yeah, it was more of him and that side of that shows everything.
Mm. That's interesting. That part I did not know until just now,
Mm,
but obviously
yeah.
effective as well. Um, so we're gonna get into our overall review and the score that we're gonna give it here in a minute. But before we do that, Brandon, you have reviews for me?
Yeah, I
Okay.
got a couple
I
here that
have
we
a
can
couple for
dive
you, so
into.
you can either do all of yours or we can switch off, or you can do
I mean, do
whatever.
you have?
I have three.
after
One
as
of them's
well.
kind of a joke. They're really two.
Okay, yeah, I mean, like I have two bad reviews because
Okay.
again, we were just discussing before we started this podcast about like if you were gonna make a bad review, like if you're gonna make a review on this movie and it be bad, that seems pretty wild to me.
Yeah,
Um,
very much so.
uh, so the first one I got, we'll go back and forth since we have three
Okay,
each.
cool.
So we'll do this one first. This was by Ralph Novak. He's part of People Magazine. So, I saw what else he reviewed. He reviewed a lot of other movies as well, made back in March 25th, 2014. He says, while Scorsese generates vivid images, he covered this ground in the superb Mean Streets in 1973. Here, there's nothing to learn, nobody to sympathize with. And he gave it like a 2.5 stars or something like that. So, the last part for me says, here, there's nothing to learn and nobody to sympathize with. I'm like, I don't agree with that at all,
At that
but
point, he
you
just
can.
doesn't like the movie as a concept.
Yeah, I mean, because like when he says that here's nothing to learn, I'm like, you're literally learning the life of what the
Yeah, I
mafia
was gonna
is.
say
Like you can
you're very
already,
much learning.
and then nobody to sympathize with. I mean, like you can just if you want just one, you can just sympathize with Karen at that point. I'm like, like I don't, yeah, I don't
I even think you can
understand it.
sympathize with Henry a lot of times with
Yeah,
this movie.
I was
Like I
saying, I was just
said,
saying with one. You can sympathize with Paulie, with him being betrayed by Henry if you want to. I mean, like there's right, like there's so many that you can sympathize with in in these moments of need, these moments of wanting something. It's like you understand what these characters are feeling, and it's like I don't understand when you can just say like, yeah, there was just nobody to sympathize with, there was nothing to learn. It was just vivid images with the mean streets of 1973, and that's pretty much it.
yeah, I don't know how you
I'm
can
like,
watch this movie for 2.5 hours and come out with that thought. I really don't.
yeah, and now I tried to see if there was a full article, and couldn't find one. It was just this statement by him. There was not a full article that I could find.
Interesting. I mean, listen, the Mean Streets comparison. Listen, Mean Streets is a great movie, a very very old movie. It's probably what 17 years before this one. I think it came out in 73. Um,
Hmm.
but this movie I feel like covers so much more ground than that movie does, despite that movie also being amazing in its own right. That I don't really think that you can, because what it kind of sounds like he's saying is just like just watch Mean Streets and you basically get what you get here. But
Yeah.
that is very much not the
Or he's
case
saying
at
you
all.
watch Mean Streets and you'll actually learn more about what this movie's trying to portray, and actually you can find characters to kind of
Sympathize with, yeah.
yeah. I'm like okay.
But again,
Okay.
it's like I'm gonna take the opposite angle because I love it when movies when the protagonist isn't necessarily a good person. I
Yeah.
like that. It's nuance. It adds it. I mean, what you just
It's
want the
same
hero
with
story every fucking time? Like
same
you
with
need to.
same with our last week with Bottle Rocket. Man, we wouldn't say the guys were
Yeah, exactly.
great people for what they
For
did,
what they were
but then
doing.
again, we never like batted an eye to it. We're like, oh yeah, that's just who they are. They're quirky guys.
His criticism would be one thing if the characters were just shallow and shitty people, but they're not. Not
Yeah,
even
'cause I
really.
mean,
I mean,
even
yeah,
Tommy's
Tommy's a
not.
shitty person, but like,
Tommy's shitty, but I think he even is shitty in the way of he's it's a shell of a person in the sense of like he doesn't want his actual inner self to come out. There's something that happened to him that I'm just like this. I'm just saying this is for things that I would think when it comes to Tommy is like he is being shown as like like the short guy syndrome.
yeah, struggles
You
with
know, like
ego. Yeah.
yeah he struggles with something that we don't necessarily fully see all the time. And anytime anyone takes a little jab at him, he goes above and beyond to say like, nah, don't fucking mess with me in that way.
Yeah.
And it's
He
like
shoots you in the foot, and then you say, "Why not go fuck yourself? I'll just kill you."
yeah, it's like, and I literally watched, and I was like, bruh, I was like, there was no need for all
Yeah,
that.
yeah, for real.
I was like, oh
I love
my
that scene.
god, yeah, and like even Jimmy's like, bro, what the fuck are you doing? It's like, come on, but yeah, I thought that was interesting when I read that one.
I guess that's a good. I'll use this one since this is a good. That's a good jumping off point for this. Olef, his name on Letterbox XD. He rates it 4.5 stars. He says, "I don't know, man. There are some pretty bad fellas in this one." That's it.
Bro, that's the whole point. That's the
I know.
you obviously
No,
the whole thing goes over this guy's head. He's like, yeah, these guys are definitely not the good
no.
fellas.
This
I'm
this
like,
guy's definitely
bruh,
being ironic. Like he gave it four
this
and a half out of
yeah.
five.
I was about to say, I was like,
Yeah,
yeah.
but yeah, it's just a spin on
That's
the title. But
hilarious. Yeah, because in the way that they see themselves as the good guys. There's a scene in the movie where Henry is narrating. And he's like, he, I think he said he was like, we're the people that if you need help, but yet you can't go to the police. we can help you. We're those people
Yeah.
that those kind of things. He's pretty much trying to build up that no, we're not bad. We're just doing bad things for the people that need help. It's like, don't know about that one, but hey,
But that's how they see
whatever.
it. But that's how they envision it,
That's
right?
but
It's
that's how
good
they see
to
it. They're
them. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
So but we all know they do bad things, which then entails could make them bad fellas.
Mm,
But
mm, mm.
but yeah.
But yeah,
So
that's
that
all.
was
That's all for this one. That was just kind of a joke one. My other two are like actual reviews. But you can go ahead
okay.
and do your next one.
The only other one that my last one is my more real review that I actually got to like see.
Hmm.
The second one was more again that I just don't understand individuals in the sense of the world. But Quinn R. In 2020 of December 26th, I think they gave it like again it was like 2 stars, maybe even one. It said too long with too many storylines. What was the plot? Question mark. It jumped around so much I couldn't keep up. The acting was really good though.
Couldn't keep up. I don't know how hard. Someone said that about Bottle Rocket last week when we did that.
Hey man,
What is
the
so
jump
hard to
around.
understand about these movies? I really hope these guys aren't watching like actual art house movies because it will fuck their mind into
It's like
oblivion.
I just don't get it. I
Si
just it's
yeah,
so complicated. I'm like it really didn't. It didn't. It says there's so many storylines. I'm like I'm trying to think of the different storylines, but it all still revolved
I'm
around
about to say they
Henry
all
and his
revolve
wife.
around the same people. Like yeah, they're but that's like how are you gonna depict a mob? But
What
there
was
be
the plot?
one storyline of like what do you mean? Like
What the fuck do you mean? Like even with what was the plot? Like what do you mean you're confused about the plot? I mean it's just the
it's like
mafia
he's
and every.
inciting there is no plot, but then he says they have too many plot lines. So
Yeah,
make
it's
up
like
your mind. Is there a plot or not?
it's like too long. It's with way too many storylines. Like I just don't understand the plot. It's like there's multiple plots in that sense if you think about it. But if you want to even dive deeper, and then it just jumps around so much I couldn't keep up.
Mm.
But then he capped. The acting was really good though.
Yeah, but
That
shout out the acting.
the shout out to the
I love how he
acting.
shouts out the acting, but not the fact that the film is fucking beautiful the entire time.
He's like the acting spot on. It's like bruh. I thought that one was
It's
funny
just
as
a
well
movie
when
with
I
no
read that
plot, but
one.
just good acting, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. But you can go to your second one now.
Okay, so this one is interesting. This is I wouldn't say negative. It kind of is negative. It's a 3 out of 5. And
Hmm.
my last one I think is just a 5 star one, but I just liked it a lot, so I wanted to read it. But this one, Dark H, also on Letterboxd XD, gives it 3 stars. He says, I decided to give Scorsese's film another go, and while I still appreciate the skill involved, I just cannot get myself to like this movie. The problem is that in a film full of antagonists, the audience always loses. The movie doesn't make me care for a single character, and that completely takes me out of it. It turns me from a spectator into a passerby. The story arc is fine and is told with Scorsese's usual skill. Most performances are excellent and engaging, but I keep coming back to the fact that I need a protagonist I can root for in a story like this. Our supposed hero, the way he's written, is simply not a character I care about at all, as there are no redeeming features. Added to that, it is by far the weakest performance in this film. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. It certainly is well made, but for me, it definitely does not definitely does not go deserving the accolade a masterpiece it is so often given. So
So,
he says similar things
so I was
to
gonna
the
say, I
one
was
that
like,
you read off, but
I
he
don't
kind of goes a
understand.
little bit more into detail.
I don't
Um,
I don't understand when people read the word protagonist, they have to think butterflies and rainbows.
but he
Like it
also says
doesn't.
here, he says that the film is full of antagonists, so the audience always loses. But again, I don't know if
Like he
Henry
wants a
is an
good guy in this movie.
antagonist.
Yeah, like he wants someone to just be good so bad in this movie. Oh, with a world that's revolved around not being good.
How are you gonna have a
It's like
good character in the mob? Henry is as good of a character, like a good of a person as you're
yeah,
ever gonna see
he
depicted in a
rats.
mob.
He
Yeah.
rats. That's as best as you could do in a mob situation is that you rat out on everyone. Like it's like as someone that's like just a normal spectator of the world, you're like, if I was about to get murdered by individuals that were within the mob, and I'm sitting here, I'm like, I could either go into protect. Even did the smartest thing you've probably done. Went into witness protection and ratted, so you put those individuals in jail. And it's like I don't think a lot of individuals wouldn't do that in that situation. I feel like the really hardcore die mafias wouldn't, obviously, but the ones that want to get out or the ones that are looking for an escape, yeah, they're doing that. They just are. And it's like that's the best thing he could have done within that situation. There was not anything better he could have done. So I don't get it with the protagonist thing. I never understood
It
that.
seems like the common theme between people that don't like this movie is that they're just having a hard time attaching
Liking
themselves
someone.
to any of these characters. I also don't believe that you need to fully agree with the character and everything he's doing to be attached to said character. It does a good job of showing you why Henry chose this life and why he is where he is. How is him not getting beat by his father and shown how shitty his home life is not a reason to root for this guy? Like I,
I
I
mean,
just
yeah, I don't know about that, but I mean, I just know I just don't see. You don't have to. I don't even know about rooting in general. Why, when you watch a movie, you have to
root for someone.
yeah, root. Like, what the
Yeah,
fuck am I doing? It's not a sports team. I'm enjoying a film. It's not like I'm not trying to say I hope this guy wins at the end of the day, unless it's a movie that's like that. If the
right.
movie is, like I'm like, oh yeah, this guy's cool. I want this guy to win. Then yeah, that's how your movie's made. But that's not how this movie is necessarily made. This movie is just showing you the life of an individual that was in the mafia and how it got turned upside down very quickly, with all the shit that went down within it. And it's just, I don't understand where it's like, oh, man, I just really want, and technically, I guess if you didn't care for him to win, but he did win at the end of the day in that sense. But it's just like I don't get that part of like, I just had no one to root for. Everyone was just evil. I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah,
it
man,
seems
that's
to
the
me
mafia.
it seems to me like these negative reviews have less of a problem with the movie itself and more of an issue with the concept of it.
Yeah,
And
I just don't think they like I saw a lot of those
yeah,
reviews and I didn't want to pick them out because they did state they're like, yeah, I just don't think these kind of movies are for me. I'm like, okay,
all right,
just
fair.
stop fucking
You
writing
can say that.
reviews.
Yeah, you can say that.
Like,
That's
don't
fair.
review it then if it's not for you. I don't
But
understand.
I'd
Like, you,
rather them say that because this is the thing is often people don't get the difference when something is bad versus when something is just not for them because they're different
yeah,
things. So it's like I at
yeah,
least appreciate to be like, hey, like this isn't for me, as opposed to trying to tell me why it's a bad movie. Because you're gonna get much further saying this is not for me than telling me why than you are trying to convince me that this somehow isn't a good
yeah.
movie. Like that's
If
just
you're
an
in something like,
absurd
yeah,
statement.
I don't really like this movie. It's why. It's like, oh, it's just not for me. I'm more of a guy that enjoys a movie with a protagonist that's seen as a good individual and I can actually root for them to like win at the end of the
There's
day.
plenty of movies out there for that.
Which I'm like, but yeah, go ahead because I just I don't like those movies for me are very far between of what I actually do like because most of them are very just wow, amazing. They're just so well made. Me being very sarcastic with that, but yeah. You really go to the
Yep,
last
you got
two?
one more for
Okay.
me. Yep.
Yeah, I got one more. I think this one was 5 out of 5 stars as well.
Okay.
This was actually recently,
Okay.
January 4th, 2023. It
Hmm.
was made. Is by I don't actually have the person's name under here, but we're just gonna just shout out to whoever said this. But the Mafia classic Goodfellas is a riveting and distinct movie within the mafia film genre, directed by the famous Martin Scorsese. I think right. Did I say that right?
Yeah, Scorsese. Yep.
Scorsese, yeah. Goodfellas tells a brutal story of the life and sacrifices of an Italian gangster. It snatches the audience from their seats and throws them into the world of underground organized crime with their masterfully executed internal narration and the spectacular performance of Joe Pesci, Robert De Niro, and Ray Liotta. Goodfellas is a stark contrast to The Godfather, showing the greedy and brutal reality of the mafia and the people among its ranks.
Hmm.
So,
I
uh,
like how he brings up because it's a very important kind of element to this movie is that obviously there's tons of movies, especially even before this time, honestly, that are about the mob. That's a very popular
yeah,
movie concept to
Scorsese
have. So the
made
way
one
that
before
he
this too.
yeah, exactly. So the way that he has to do it in a way that really sets itself apart, and he 100% fucking does that.
Mhm.
So yeah, that is a very I'm
Oh, yeah.
very glad that that reviewer brought that up because that is a great point.
See if I can. Where is it at? Yeah, is it? I believe Raging Bull is one that's like this as well. I haven't seen it, but it's about the mob and the mafia and stuff like that as well. I believe.
Similar, a way different take on it, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
but like I'm saying, like
you could say
he's
that.
in the realm of this, you
Yes,
know, of organized underground organized crime.
correct, correct.
But yeah, you can go to your next one then. But yeah, I just thought that he pretty much again hit the nail on the coffin, or nail on the head with when it comes to what we're saying to these other reviewers of it. It doesn't give you a protagonist in that way. It gives you the life of
How it was.
yeah, of a sacrificing Italian gangster. It's like that shows you that. It's not like, oh man, this guy is such an evil person. I'm like, well, if that's how you feel about this kid that grew up this way, then yeah, I mean, but that's just what it is. I can't change the narrative of something that is based off of true events. That I can't make him a good guy all of a sudden.
Right. And this
That's
movie would
not
be
how that.
all the worse if it was like that. This movie would not
Oh
be
yeah,
nearly
it
as
wouldn't it
effective as
wouldn't
this.
be it wouldn't feel as real as what that's why my biggest thing with the movie is it felt like this is
You
really
got
what
it.
took happen. Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's just yeah. But go ahead.
Um, Dragonflame 1994 on Rate Your Music. This is a pretty recent review too. Is May 14th of last year. Gives it 5 out of 5 stars. He says in his little title here, as far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. And the review goes, how do you even review a movie like Goodfellas? Right from the intro with that iconic quote and freeze frame, I knew this movie was going to be a masterpiece, and what an absolute masterpiece it was. Everything from the Oscar-worthy masterclass acting performances to the amazing narration and script to the soundtrack and the incredible cinematography, it is all just perfection. It's no surprise the movie is widely regarded as one of the greatest of all time, right up there with The Godfather and Scarface with its subgenre. Inspired by a true story and based on Nicholas, God, apologies if I screw this up, Pileggi's book, Wise Guy, Goodfellas is a high octane tale of the American dream, told through the life of Henry Hill, as played by the charismatic Ray Liotta. We watch as young Henry admires the mob from afar until he works his way into Polly's Cicero's gang as a fence, and as he gets older, he starts rising through the ranks, working himself up to more serious crimes, and his life slowly starts to spin out of control. I think what I love about Goodfellas is the most is how the first half and the second half almost feel like two completely different movies. Wow, look at that. First half shows a young and inexperienced Harry being swept away by the glamour of the mob as he gets the full VIP treatment. We as the audience are also swept away with Henry as we see the pros of being with this mob. Henry has more cash than he knows what to do with. He has freedom from authority because his family runs a city, or quote unquote family, and he can bribe anyone. He gets a beautiful girlfriend named Karen, in parentheses, who eventually becomes his wife, due to his mob connections and seduces her with his luxurious lifestyle. The part of this movie that introduces us to the quote family, we already know the big boss Polly at this point, but there's also guys like Robert De Niro's Jimmy Conway and a cunning and ruthless gangster whose goal is to rise to the top no matter what it takes, and Joe Pesci's loose cannon psychopath Tommy DeVito, who might shoot you just for looking at him the wrong way. In parentheses, what can I say? He's a funny guy. We know these men are dangerous criminals, yet we see these guys alongside many other part characters in parentheses like Timmy or like Jimmy two times, all hanging out, playing cards, eating dinner together, and just genuinely going about their daily lives in such a natural and realistic way. The movie truly captures the family-like feeling of the mob. Very true. And even if just for a brief moment you start to believe these guys are actually good fellas. However, that's when the second half of the movie hits both Henry and us. The audience are knocked out of our romanticized view of the mob. Henry gets into fights with the wrong people. His wife threatens him because she finds out he has a mistress. He eventually even has to do jail time and develops a drug addiction too. All the lying, cheating, and violence has done finally comes to head, and we watch his life start to fall apart at the seams. That's just one of the many reasons why Goodfellas is a masterclass in storytelling. It showcases such a realistic look at both the good and the bad side of the mobs. It's like we, the audience, get a peek into the secret world of the mafia for 2.5 hours, and Scorsese is our guide on that journey. I'm sure I could type up multiple paragraphs more about how Goodfellas is one of the greatest movies ever made, but instead I'll just leave it at that. I've seen well over 1,000 plus movies, and few have left me as awestruck as this one did. Truly Scorsese's magnum opus. Very fucking well said. Yeah, I mean
Yeah, that's a good sending
that
off
is
right
very
there.
much why the movie works. The again showing the audience kind of into the glorified, glamorous life that the mob lives, and you kind of so you can understand why this would be welcoming and warming to Tommy as opposed to being mad at him like you're fucking stupid. Why are you with these people? Because if it was portrayed like that, then it would just make him seem like a bonehead and make him less likable. But and then as I was kind of alluding to earlier about his life catching up to you and you kind of watching all of that unfold and how his life slowly starts to kind of domino effect into a whole bunch of issues and beefs with other people and all sorts of crazy shit. Obviously, the helicopter chasing him. It just it's such a good depiction of your past catching up to you. Like it very much is a story of that sort. So obviously,
Hmm.
that's one of the reasons this movie is so acclaimed and so well loved is because of just how it portrays the mob. It is so nuanced and so unique. And again, we're kind of used to seeing the mob in a bad light. We're used to seeing the dangerous and dark sides of it, and very rarely the warmth. of it or why somebody would be attracted to it in the first place. So yeah, that I mean, great fucking review.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. So yeah, with
No.
that being the last one, do you have anything to say on that before I move on?
I mean, he pretty much summarized all the things we have been saying throughout this whole
Yeah.
evening
It's
about the
crazy.
movie.
I only read the I read the first paragraph of this because I saw it was a 5 star and I saw it was like kind of long, and so I
Yeah.
just read the first half of this. I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna read this out. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's pretty crazy that they also. I mean, it's not that hard to grab, but
yeah,
apparently for
exactly.
the other ones we saw it was. But the two halves of the movie and whatnot, stuff like
It's
that.
very
So.
apparent. It definitely is. Like there's a very apparent split between when that quote unquote second movie begins, which is actually right where you are in the beginning, which is why it's so brilliant.
Mhm.
Like that's when the movie really becomes what it's building up to that whole time. Is the
Yeah.
opening scene and then them obviously redoing the opening scene. That's just God, it's so fucking brilliant. Um,
Mhm.
but with that, we'll go ahead and we'll get in our final reviews out. We'll get in our scores. Now I want to know on a scale of 1 to 10, what are you giving Goodfellas?
Hey, I did Bottle Rocket first because you brought it to the table, so you gotta do this one first since I brought this one to the table.
Ooh, you're gonna put me on the spot like this.
I
Um,
did. You put me on the spot.
I hate to do this so early on because I feel like it's very rare that I ever do this.
Oh wow, here we go.
But I'm gonna have to give it a 10. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. I do think it is a masterpiece. I do think it's perfect, and I do think this is pretty much a good template of what a 10 out of 10 movie would look like. And there's a reason very few movies since have gotten near as good as this one. It stands out. It's effective, as we've talked about at nauseum. It's everything
Mhm.
a movie, especially of this caliber, should want to be. So I feel like it'd be disrespecting this movie to give this anything less than a 10 for me personally.
Gotcha. That is it's an interesting thing. It's very interesting.
Where are you at?
Um, man, I am in a spot here.
I
I'll
have a
tell you
feeling you're
that.
between 9 and 10.
I'm there.
Okay.
I'm around there. But the thing is like when I think I have like I have like two different ratings for this movie really.
Mm, mm,
When it comes to what it was doing and what it wanted to do
mm,
and like how it portrayed it and how the whole thing came out and everything like that, it's a 10. It does what it's supposed to do at a 10 level.
mm,
For my enjoyment of the movie
mm,
though and how I actually enjoyed watching it and everything about it and like, the how the comedy in it and everything. I didn't enjoy it at a 10 level as
mm,
some other movies that I have enjoyed more than a 10.
mm,
Um so I don't know if I want to say a 9 out of 10, but like like on like 100% scale, mm. On 100% scale, I'm looking at like Rotten Tomato right now. I'm looking at a 97 and a 96. I'm
mm,
seeing these, and I'm like, and I'm trying to think of other movies that I enjoyed that I'd put right there. And again, I think this movie is a 10 out of 10 when it comes to what it does. Like I'm not saying that in that regard, but for enjoyment, I'll put it. mm, I want to put it at an 89, but I'm gonna put it at a 90.
okay. Well, that's good because I'm only doing scores. I'm not doing point nines. That's ridiculous. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what is an
I'll do
8.9 versus a 9. I don't know what that looks. I don't even think that exists.
yeah, 89%. On Rotten Tomatoes
Well,
being
yeah,
89.
but the way that the Rotten Tomatoes work, it's not one score. It's just an average of a bunch of people. So that's not
Yeah.
that. But that's just like a pet peeve of mine. Like when I see someone give a game, they'll give it like a 7.9. I'm like, bro, for fucking Christ, it's an 8.
Because
Like
it's
you can
not
do
though. It's
half.
high
You can do
school.
no, it's not. You can do half scores. But if you can sit down and
Bruh,
explain to me what's
85
the
is
difference?
crazy.
Hold on, what's the difference between an 8 and a 7.9? Like
What's the
what's
difference? Well,
yeah.
C and a B. A C and a B.
No, that's not what I'm asking. I'm saying
But
on like
it's the same.
in detail, what's the quality difference between a 7.9
The
and an 8?
quality difference is you have a grouping of movies
Mm,
within a 90s,
yeah.
right? But you just that the movie that you're putting at like an 89 or anywhere in that is right on that cutoff to the point to where it can change on any given day to the point to where it could be a 90, but on other days it could be an 89. And it's not one of those set in stone 90s that I would put in the 90 group,
And
is what I'm
say
saying.
and say 8.5.
No, 8.5 is too low for me.
Well,
It's not an 8. I enjoyed this movie too much to put it in an 8.5. That's why I said I'll do a 9. That's why I said
okay,
9.
okay. No, no, I don't have a problem with 9.
Yeah, that's why I said if I was to give like it a full percentage, I'd probably do like an 89 percentage, but I will do a 9 just so it is easy. I just do
Okay,
9
okay, okay.
is what I'm
Well, there
saying.
you go. You gave it
But
an.
with this the audience and people probably being mad at me and everything. I'm being more critiquative on giving movies that high. So
Nobody should ever get mad at anybody giving anything a 9. That's fucking insanity. That's
if people think like you think it deserves a 10 out of 10, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like it's like
but I think like I would never get. I would start asking questions once you got to like a 7 out of 10. I'd be like,
no,
interesting. Because then you're
I
saying it's a good
still
movie, not a great one, and I just that's where. But you give
yeah
it an 8 or anything above, I'm not gonna. I don't have any questions. You could give it an 8 out of 10, I still wouldn't have any questions. I'd be like, all right, makes sense, great
yeah
movie.
no it's for what it's doing 10 for my enjoyment and combined with that not it averaged more to a 9 in that rating for
What
me.
I'm gonna do because I want to keep my 10 out of 10s to like literally like my absolute most favorite movies ever made like of all time. I'm gonna put this at a 9.5 out of 10.
You
I like that
got
a
him
little more.
down. You
Just because
done.
I want the tens to be like if I give something a 10, I'm basically
That's what I'm
saying like this is
saying.
like
Like
a,
I'm
could
not.
on a given day I could say this is my favorite movie of all time. I'm not quite there with this movie, but it's right there.
Yeah, but when it comes to what it does in portraying the
Yes,
mafia, yeah,
objectively,
I think
yes.
it's yeah, not bro. Like that's beautiful, but and yes, it still is my type of movie. It's just not as much to a 10 level for me at that point.
Yeah, no issues
So,
with that. No issues with that.
but yeah, so try I put it at a 9
All
for
right.
me.
Well, there you have it, guys. Do you have anything you want to add before we wrap this up?
Um, eat pistachios, pretty good.
Mm, mm, mm. Drink milk. Heard it's pretty good.
Ah, I can't.
Especially with pizza.
Yeah, do that,
Especially with
sure.
pizza.
Or with quesadillas, I guess,
Yep,
because
quesadillas
that's
too.
not crazy.
It's not.
Okay.
Let me know what you guys think of milk in the comment box, and we'll leave it at that.
Yeah,
But yeah,
there you go.
until next week. The next week I'll just go ahead and drop it since I already know what we're gonna do. We're gonna do the Ethel Kane album that came out last year. I'm sure a lot of you, including you, Brandon, probably don't know who that is, but you're going to. You will by
No,
next
Caleb
week.
likes to just
So
make me listen and watch things that I've never done,
I
and
had a
so
quite visceral experience with this album, which is why I picked it because it's something that has already, even though I've only heard it like for 3 days now, something that's become super important to me. And yeah, so I'm very fucking excited to for you to hear it and for us to discuss it next week.
but
So
you are.
we'll uh we'll get there when we get there. But yeah, that's it. That's all for today. I hope y'all have a good one. And yeah, thanks for listening.
Bye, guys.
Deuces.